Nice.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and kick off? This is being recorded, just so everybody knows, because we're going to be able to share it with other people that have questions. And so your questions will benefit others who are not able to join us online today as well. My name is Professor Gordon Flake. I'm the CEO of the Perth USAsia Center. I think you all probably know this because you're signing onto this program, but this is an information session in advance of the formal start of our second year of running a micro-credentialed course on Australia in the Indo-Pacific, understanding our strategic connections to Asia. And so the intent today is just to answer any specific questions you might have about some of the logistics, but more importantly, the substance, kind of the how and why. And we're very fortunate to have kind of the creator, mastermind, author of this process, Dr. Lisa Cluett, to answer some of the questions that you've got. I might kick it off with a couple as well. Lisa serves as the Director of External Relations for the Perth USAsia Center, and last year built this program, from the ground up, and she's done a magnificent job of making sure that it is evergreen, that is constantly updated. We ran 3 sessions last year. We've got 2 sessions this year. And so, Lisa, why don't I just kind of ask you for some framing remarks to begin with, and then I'll have a couple more quick questions, and we'll turn to just questions from those who are with us on the call here. But can you just give us kind of the context for what this course is, who it's for, and then we'll get some of the details after that.
Sure. Thanks, Gordon, and hi, everyone. I think I'll start by saying, I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool international relations expert, but working in this field with lots of people who are those experts, I very quickly realized that it's really something everyone needs to know a little bit about. And whilst there's lots of things in the news or lots of things sort of in more, widely available media, I thought that people would really benefit from a foundation course where there's no assumptions that you know anything, but that quite quickly you could upskill in learning about how Australia sees itself, particularly in Asia, but also with the United States. So I've designed the course really with those kind of people in mind. People who might work in any kind of field, anything from, we've had lawyers and people in engineering and people in resources, people in education, who just said, look, I just find myself in an environment where I need to upskill in kind of all relations, things to do with foreign policy. And I've just tried to make it as doable as possible. So the confession is then that I'm an engineer by trade, and so I built it so it's doable. It's supposed to be straightforward. You can do it in your own time. It covers all the key things you need to know. It's not supposed to be, a trial or a punishment. It's very accessible. You see a lot of different videos and audio clips and things from the media. It's very supported. So I think my context and framing is around the fact that it's really designed to be accessible and usable. It's not designed to exclude anyone or say, look, this isn't your business or you can't be involved. It's specifically designed for people who want to step through it 8 weeks and get a really good view of how Australia sees itself in Asia.
So since this is not your first rodeo, you had a chance to run the course 3 times last year. For those who are on this call and maybe watching this video later on, what are your key takeaways and learnings from the 3 sessions that you ran last year, and how might that be helpful to understand for those who are interested in looking at it today?
So the first thing really is that it's applicable to everyone. So you don't have to, have a particular level of seniority or a particular background. This is designed really for people with some kind of generally education, a generally educated community who's just interested. We've got people who come at it from all sorts of angles, and then they take this knowledge into their own field of expertise. So it really is available to everyone. The other thing is people are very, very interested. There's sections on trade, on defence, on climate, on energy, a little bit about our history, a little bit about our future. And you I help you, watch things that are very much in the news now and kind of guide you through what does that really mean, and what does this part of foreign policy mean. So really, those are the two main things. It's for everyone, and everybody can do it. Everybody who does the materials, who you don't have to do them all at the same time. You don't have to do them all every week. You don't have to do them at the same time as everyone else. But as long as you get through them in the window of the course, you can and will pass the assessment. That's how it's made. And I know that now 3 times, hundreds of people, you can do it, and it can fit into your lives. I'm completely aware that there's busy professionals trying to add something to their kind of skill set. So I've specifically said, there's no specific class time you have to be online with me. The course content is released every Monday morning. In the beginning, lots of people do it and then, maybe fall behind a bit and catch up at the end. It's completely normal and it's completely fine. It's really only assessed on that final quiz at the end.
So can you give just again a quick framing of what the commitment is? How many weeks? How long per week? What is being asked of those people who take the course?
Sure. So starting on the 29th of April, in this case, and that's a Monday, every Monday morning, a week's content will be released. Now, you can do it straight away. You can do it later. But that content is about an hour's block of content, and that includes each hour's probably got 8 to 10 bits in it. So you might start with a video, then you might read a PDF, then you might look at something in the media, then you might do an activity. So it's all very much broken down. I've deliberately stayed away from long reading. So you don't do, there's no read this chapter. You might watch something from the press club, for example. So you might watch something that's delivered. Hi, Trish, how are you? So it's all broken down. So that hour's content is available to you. And then there's 4 tasks to do. And these just ask you to, again, there's no real right or wrong answer. I might ask you to go and look up a list of Australian ambassadors and kind of say, oh, I think these 2 are particularly relevant or interesting at the moment. Or I might ask you to go and look at some media overseas and see how they talk about Australia. And that's all supported in the discussion boards. So you can do that anytime. I see people doing it early in the morning. I see people catching up on the weekend. I see people doing it during work time. No wrong way to do it, but that's supported. And I'm online to answer your questions as we go. So 8 weeks, every Monday morning it gets released. People are doing it, like I said, early on, very keen, try and keep up. In the middle, people get busy, but most people come back to it and by the end have time to get through all the materials. They're all live right till the end. And then in week 8, the quiz goes live. So it's a 24-question quiz. You have to get to 20 or above, which is eminently doable. All the materials are there. It's essentially open book because you can have the materials open, and you've got 2 weeks in which to do that. So it's essentially, if you've stretched it right out, you've got 10 weeks to do it. So I saw a couple of people asked, I'm away for a week or so in May, and hopefully I'm being reassuring that as long as you're all right, coming back to it afterwards, that's no problem to me at all. I don't keep track of when people are doing it. There's no issue if you learn in a different way and you prefer to, do it up front or at the end. So that's essentially how you do it. We do schedule a couple of optional tutorials in the middle, but again, they're optional. We find people like to come on and say, oh, I've done 3 weeks of content and I've got a couple of questions, and I bring in some experts to answer them. But we record those. So if you can't come, you can still submit a question ahead of time and I'll have it answered and you can watch it later. So it's really designed to not ask you to be anywhere in particular at any particular time. That's not to say it's super easy. It's not, you do need to engage with the materials to pass the course. I hope I'm giving you the idea of it. It's rigorous and worthwhile, but it doesn't ask you to have a huge admin burden as well as trying to learn the materials.
So two of the real takeaways that I've had, from my conversations with you, Lisa, and from people who took the class, the 3 sessions we had last year, is one, you've already mentioned that if you do the classwork and you watch the videos, you do the reading, you will pass the test, right? If you don't, then it's much more difficult.
Harder, yeah, for sure.
The other thing I found was very interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is some surveys that you did that suggested when you ask participants to rank their knowledge of the issues going in over the course of an 8-week course, their self-ranking goes down. And to me, that's a really good indicator that we're explaining to you what you know and what you don't know. And the more you understand, the more you understand the complexities. And that's a really helpful learning curve. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think, yeah, you're right, Gordon. It's a very interesting thing for me. On entry, you'll see when you get into the online delivery platform, I ask people, what do you think your knowledge is now? And I'm kind of just interested in how, lots of people have never, really thought about foreign policy before, and others may have, I do a bit of it at work. And so I ask people to rate themselves out of 10. And then in a move that's really backfired is I ask people to do it again at the end. And what I found, having now run this multiple times, is that people often don't score themselves much higher, not because they haven't learned things, but they say, this is quite universal, I didn't know what I didn't know. So now, oh my God, my eyes are open. And so I've kind of shot myself in the foot there, because my back of pocket desire to show that, people are learning lots, it doesn't quite bear out. I mean, they are, but it doesn't.
They're just different measures. The passing is a measure itself. The certification measure itself. The awareness of the issues is another altogether, which I think is good. Hey, look, this is intended to be relative informal. We've got a number of people online. You're welcome to put your hand up and ask a question in person, live, if you want to, or you can type it out, as we've got one question already asking whether or not the program covers Australia's relationships with Asia in general. They were under the impression it was only the Indian Ocean, and then whether or not there's an opportunity to work together with other participants. You want to handle those two, Lisa?
I sure can. Thank you. Was that you, Joe, who asked that? I can see. Oh, here, my thing is just coming. So look, it does cover a core set of countries. It pays more attention to India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, and the US. But the course content, and in the course, you're asked to go and look at some examples, and it's open to basically everywhere. So we also look at the Philippines, and we also maybe look at Bangladesh, and we do cover, there are opportunities to cover all countries as they kind of fit in your area of interest. But in terms of the content, we particularly look at areas and countries where Australia is really trying to drive forward a productive relationship. So Indonesia, India, Japan, Korea, United States, and to some degree Vietnam. And what was the second part of the question, Joe? It's just disappeared on my screen. Yes,
opportunity to work with others. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So in the discussion boards, it is in fact part of the task. So I might say, can you go and look up the last speech that Penny Wong gave about our development policy? And I'll ask you to say, can you just pick out 1 or 2 sentences that you thought were really useful? I'm not asking you to get it right or wrong. Just say what, and then I will say, can you go and find someone else's post and see what they wrote, and then maybe make a comment on that. So I encourage that and I facilitate that. I'm in there as well, kind of commenting on what you're writing, but you will find that the cohort really comes together because people are interested in different things, and people, resonate with things differently. But you definitely find that you'll see things that other participants have picked up, and you're like, oh, I didn't really pick that up. I'm going to look at that again. So there's a real benefit in the kind of crowd approach to the course. You're all kind of in it together. You will find that not everyone's always at the same stage as you. So you might get someone commenting on your post almost a week later when people are catching up with you. But that's all works out in the end. But you definitely benefit, Joe, from discussing with people what they've spotted in the media, or because the other thing that happens, even during the period of the course, something interesting will happen. Something might happen, Indonesian elections, or something about a national defence strategy might be released by the government. So there's always kind of these things that are very front of mind that allow us to kind of explore the options and the kind of context and the materials of the course in a very contemporary way. You're like, oh, let's look at how that was announced, or let's look at how that relates to what this country have said. So I try and weave that in as we go. So I hope that answers your question. I think that was Joe who asked that.
Yeah, it was Flynn Joe. I'm not sure what the last name, but thanks. Look, if I can echo that, one of the things I find impressive about this is not just 8-hour-long lectures of a professor droning on into a camera. Lisa has built every single session. Well, I think there's no individual segment of those sessions that's more than 5 or 6 minutes long.
That's right.
So there's a lot of different things that you can focus on. That also gives it the advantage of the fact that it's modular, because things change over the course of 3 sessions last year and this session this year. There are things that need to be updated. There's content needed to be updated, and this allows us to make it evergreen and topical, given the rapidly changing developments in the region. But you should come away with a broader understanding of Australia in the Indo-Pacific, how we engage in Asia more broadly in terms of that process. The other thing I would add there as well is that while this is online and it can be done pretty much from anywhere, and within that 10-week period of time, once the sessions are released anytime, there are opportunities to engage, as Lisa so well laid out, both with us directly and with other participants in that process.
Yeah. And you'll find people want very different things from it as well. People want to float ideas, when some people want their facts checked and stuff. It's like any group of people studying a course, right? It's no different just because it's online. But we're also kind of really hoping that when you see me, like I introduce every week, and you'll see Gordon every session, we are just fairly normal people. We're just trying to help you understand, and there's no pressure for you to understand this already. That's really not the point. I will assume you will know almost nothing and walk you through it. That's how it's pitched at professionals looking to say, I think I really need to understand what's going on internationally, and I want someone who can deliver, something I can use. So you would all know to that end then that it's backed by the university, and you get, a university kind of accreditation from the course. So it's very rigorous in that process. That means all the, things are checked through properly. It's supported by a big institution. So something hopefully, not to be too pragmatic like an engineer that I am, but something that's hopefully marketable by you, right? But you want something to say, I've done this and I can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're also fairly sure there's not much around that's like this, that feels quite doable and hopefully affordable and bite-sized. So that's really where we've pitched it. Yeah.
So much of any specialization is about language. The language of this course obviously is in English, but really it's the vocabulary of understanding international relations. You want to talk a little bit about how people learn a new vocabulary, if you will, and then some of the other materials that come along with the course.
Yeah. Well, as people would know, all disciplines have their, their vernacular. And the international relations is no different. I remember when I started working here, the sort of word soup or the word salad of people, what are you trying to say? And of course, I'm that person in the room going, I don't know what you're talking about. I need you to make it plain English. And so there are a lot of acronyms. There are organizations, there might be policies, there might be things in our history that have acronyms. And so what I've done, and I did this, even for the first course, is there is a glossary. So you get that in week 1. In week 1, you get this glossary. I think it's got more than 100 terms in it that cover all the acronyms and all the kind of niche words, because you don't need to take up too much of your brain space remembering all of those all the time. And every week I ask you to pick, I think this is one of the tasks, you pick a couple of new words you've kind of hooked into, and you kind of just say, oh, this is what I think, how I think this is a useful term. So it covers everything from sort of APEC, again, don't worry if you don't know what that is, because you'll find out, all the way through to like, what is disinformation? It's got a proper definition of that's what that is. And we stick to that kind of definition throughout the course. So it's not, what do you call it, like a, it's not an exercise in learning all this jargon. That's not the focus of the course. So the glossary is there, just you will get all that. It's more about how those things kind of come together, and people are surprised by the time sort of week 5 and 6 rolls around, they're using these terms back at me sort of very satisfyingly, implementing some of these terms like strategic interest, which I was, things like that. Most people would know what strategic is and what interest is, and you put them together and all of a sudden you've got sort of a strange concept that actually does need a definition. So we do make sure that people have got supporting materials. There's a guide to the free trade agreements Australia's engaged in. There's a guide to our security agreements. There's a couple of maps, and there's the glossary. So there's certainly things that you keep those forever. They're downloadable, and you keep those. So we've definitely tried to support people through the course, bearing in mind there's a lot of new stuff and it can feel a bit overwhelming in the beginning.
Okay, I'm going to go to Zach in a minute. Zach's got a question, but we had a previous question from a guest who's kind of slipped away from Japan, who was asking about, whether there's financial assistance available. So we've deliberately kept the price point of this very, very low. I think it's $450 to take the course to get the accreditation, which is, those of you who've been to university lately will know, is extremely low in that process. This is not a kind of a revenue-making enterprise for the center, but part of our broader mission to make sure that the broader private sector, government, civil service sector, broader community understands and engages in the Indo-Pacific more broadly. But if there's any specific questions, feel free to email Lisa or any member of her team directly in that process. So I've got another question online, but I'm going to go to you first, Zach. You've had a hand up for a bit first.
Thanks, Gordon, and thanks so much, Lisa. I think these sessions are really helpful. You've sort of outlined it really, really clearly. I'm pretty terrible at reading about things, so it's good to sort of just hear.
It's not everyone's kind of thing.
Yeah, just 2 really quick questions. They're sort of unrelated. The first one was, can I just confirm? So there's no actual live classes as such, online classes. It's all recorded.
Yeah, so I've batched up a whole, it's one link, you click on it, you'll see a video for a bit. And I always say, this will be 7 minutes. And then you might hit a PDF and I'll say something like, this is a 12-minute read. So if you've got to go somewhere, you're like, I haven't got time for that. I'll pause it here. So you just pause at any time. So you don't have to do it all in one go. Like I said, each session has, 6 to, 8 to 10 different elements to it. I think across the whole course there's 45 different presenters, everyone from kind of awesome. Kim Beasley to guest speakers to people in the region, so you'll see lots of different people. So I'm trying to keep it kind of fresh, but I'm there every week to say this is what's going to happen, and Gordon always kicks off the session to give some framing remarks. So and
also there are those two tutorials where you will have a live chance to ask questions during the course of the course, which is kind of a unique element of this as opposed to a purely online one.
Yeah, so if there's anything that you get through, I think we have one at the end of week 3 and then one at the end of week 6 or 7. And if you kind of go, I've really only done one of the weeks, it doesn't matter. You can just join that tutorial and go, I just still don't understand this concept. Can you and then one of us will, or I'll invite someone in who'll explain it. So that's the only time, and they're still optional, and I'll record them. So there's nothing you have to be, I know there are lots of different models. I've gone for the do it in your own time with scaffolding kind of help, rather than, I know there'd be people who'd like that, but if I blocked out my calendar at 2 o'clock for a class, but in the end people come unstuck because then they can't come. So anyway, that's the model I've gone for, Joe. But yes, there's sorry, Zach, and there's no need to do anything in particular.
And Zach, you said you had a couple other questions as well.
Yeah. So no, I think that flexibility is really good. And the second part of the question, I think you sort of answered, but it was more just my own interest. Do you find, because you've run it a few times, are most of the people doing this, is it for sort of professional development, or is it more out of interest? Or I know
what you mean, or a bit of both. When we ask them, it's either to progress in the role they've got now or to get a new job. But they're going, look, or progressing in a new role is something like, I work in the Department of Education in New South Wales, and I've been asked to join this project about how we partner with, and I just literally don't know literally don't know where to start. And a lot of people find themselves in meetings with people who've worked in India for a long time, or, you know, got a background, and they're like, I need to just find out what the people are talking about. I can't. I need to just know what you know, where my line is, and get a bit upskilled. So, or they're going, I want to build my skills. I'm looking for that kind of direction. I don't want to go back to uni and do a full-on master's or a grad dip or something. So how about I do this? It will see, you know, get me grounded, get me the basics, get me the core stuff I need to know, and then I can go from there.
Yeah, and we've had the full spectrum. We've had a lot of people from the business community. We've had, you know, members of the consular corps, so consul generals here. We've had actually members of our own staff who are in more administrative roles, who just said that you know, while they're doing logistics, they would also like to understand what is being discussed. It's very helpful.
We've had
Trish,
members of Parliament do it. So I've had,
yeah.
I don't mind saying, members of Parliament have done it. You know, new people who are in their first term of being a member of Parliament of like, yeah, where's my training to know what, you know, our foreign policy outlook is, but particularly at a state level. And they're like, yeah, it's exactly what I need to do. Was that you done, Zach, or you're welcome to carry on?
All good. Thanks so much. That's really helpful.
And Trish, your comments are spot on. You know, you've done something a little bit before, you just want to update it. You know, it's a fast moving thing. This is perfect for someone like you who's done some study but wants to make sure you've got updated content. So it really is the full spectrum. You can start tabula rasa, blank slate. You know, I don't know anything about this, or you can be looking to upscale. And I think it'll be equally applicable to all. This is not one of those courses where you have to have pre-knowledge, but it's also not one of those courses where you're going to be bored by the fact that you do have pre-knowledge, right? So you'll be fine.
Yeah. And even in the 2 tutorials that we do, in wherever they are, week 3 and week 6, and then Mel is in the background, she'll be screaming at me. It might be week 3 and week 7. We kind of reflect on what's going on in the world at the same time. So you kind of get a, you know, you'd be amazed at things. A lot of people give us that feedback, like, you know, now I can't stop hearing the word Indo-Pacific, or now I'm doing this course, now it's everywhere, and I really want to ask you something about something a politician said, or, you know, why this policy's come out, or why this member of parliament's traveling to that country. What does that mean? So you'd be surprised once it starts to get in your head. It's sort of all around you. So
I would say also it's a bit of recruitment here for all those who are interested in this right now. Do it with a friend. You'll find it a much more interesting thing. Do it with one of your colleagues at work, you know, rather than just that'll add a little bit element of community to that process. A bit more of a pitch. Yeah. Okay, we're at the end of our half-hour time, but I think we've got more time if there are any other questions of those that are on the line. You can reach out to Mel or Lisa via email. The materials are all there written as well. And like I say, so we've got 2 courses, 10 days now before the first one kicks off on the 29th. Yeah. A little over 10 days. And then we'll do one more session after that. So hopefully this was helpful.
I hope so. I hope you think, you can see our kind of intent. And now like I said, we've run it 3 times. You can see what we're trying to do. There's no kind of hidden agenda here. It does what it says on the tin, really. We will email you after this to make sure you've got the flyer, because this has I think you've probably seen it, but this kind of steps through week by week what we do, you know, start general, get your language up, then look at, you know, trade, then we look at security, and then we look at kind of some emerging issues. But that's if you're interested in that kind of thing. Otherwise, I think anyone's got any questions. Last go. No, I think we're good. Yeah,
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Thank you all. Appreciate you taking time today for this, and I hope you take the class. So I think you'll enjoy it. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Gordon.
Thanks.